Welcome to RedBook Insider, where we bring you powerful books that can change the way you think, work, and live. Today's video dives into timeless lessons you can start applying right away. And if you'd like to grab your own copy of the book, there's a link in the description. Have you ever wondered why life sometimes feels heavier than it should be? Why we wake up with invisible pressure on our shoulders, even when nothing is wrong on the outside? Don Miguel Ruiz begins The 4 Agreements with a bold truth. Much of the suffering we carry isn't natural, it's taught, it's inherited. And it starts long before we even realize it. He calls this invisible system the dream of the planet, a collective illusion we're all born into. Think of it like a story that was already being told before you arrived, and without knowing it, you stepped into a role. That story contains rules, beliefs, and ideas about who you should be. And here's the twist. You didn't write that story. It was written for you. From the moment you opened your eyes as a child, you began to absorb the dream. Your parents taught you what was good and what was bad. Teachers told you what was smart and what was foolish. Religion explained what was holy and what was sinful. Society showed you what success looked like and what failure meant. Little by little, every message etched itself into your mind. And how did you learn? The same way pets are trained: reward and punishment. When you obeyed, you were praised, hugged, loved. When you disobeyed, you were scolded, shamed, maybe even punished. Over time, you didn't just learn the rules, you began to police yourself. This is domestication. Just like a dog learns to sit for a treat, we learn to smile for approval, to stay quiet to avoid conflict, to suppress who we really are so we could belong. Now, here's where it gets painful. As this domestication continued, 2 voices grew louder inside us. Ruiz calls them the judge and the victim. The judge is that inner critic, the harsh voice that tells you you're not enough, that you failed, that you'll never measure up. The victim is the part of you that listens, accepts the punishment, and carries the guilt. Together they form an endless cycle of self-abuse. Think about how many times you've beaten yourself up for something small. A mistake at work, a wrong word in a conversation, a moment of weakness. Nobody else needed to criticize you, you did it yourself. That's the judge. And then you felt shame, regret, or sadness. That's the victim. It's a war that never ends because it's happening inside your own head. But here's the eye-opening truth. The judge and the victim aren't who you truly are. They're products of the dream. They were trained into you, and anything that was trained into you can be unlearned. This is where freedom begins. Ruiz says that by becoming aware of the agreements we've unconsciously made, the beliefs we accepted without question, we can begin to break them. We can reclaim the power we gave away to fear, shame, and judgment. Imagine for a moment a life where your inner critic no longer controls you, a life where the victim inside doesn't shrink with guilt or shame, a life where you live by agreements that you choose consciously, not ones that were forced on you. That's the promise of this book. Ruiz doesn't give us complicated philosophies or endless rules. He gives us 4 clear agreements, 4 choices that act like keys that unlock the prison of the dream and return us to the freedom we once had as children. But before we dive into them, here's what you need to know. These agreements may sound simple, almost too simple, but do not be fooled. They are powerful, life-changing, and, if practiced, will transform the way you see yourself and the world around you. So let's begin the journey. The first agreement may surprise you. It's not about how you treat others. It starts with how you treat yourself. And it all comes down to something you use every single day, your words. And once you understand the true power of words, you'll never hear or speak the same way again. If life feels heavy, it's not because we're weak. It's because we're carrying too many chains. Don Miguel Ruiz explains that the chains are the old agreements we unknowingly accepted. To move toward freedom, the first step isn't adding more rules. It's breaking the ones that keep us trapped. So what exactly are agreements? An agreement is simply a belief you accepted as truth. As children, we didn't choose them. We inherited them. We agreed to ideas like, I must be perfect to be loved. I must never fail. I must obey to be worthy. I can't be different. or I'll be rejected. These silent contracts form the foundation of our reality. Some agreements are harmless, even useful. Don't touch fire, it burns. That protects us. But many agreements are toxic, designed more to control than to free. When you were told, "You're not smart enough," or "You'll never succeed," and you believed it, that became an agreement. And the moment you agreed, it became part of your dream. The danger is these agreements don't just sit quietly in our minds. They shape how we live. If you agreed that you're unworthy, you'll sabotage relationships that could have given you love. If you agreed that failure makes you worthless, you'll avoid chasing dreams that could have brought you success. The old agreements don't just control what you think, they control what you dare to do. But here's the truth Ruiz wants us to see. Agreements are not permanent. They are not carved into stone. They live only as long as we feed them. And once you see them for what they are, illusions, you can choose to replace them with something stronger, something real. Of course, the old agreements don't go quietly. They fight back. That's why personal change feels so hard. It's not that you're incapable, it's that the judge inside clings to the old rules, terrified of losing control. And the victim too is scared to believe in freedom after living so long in chains. But imagine this. What if you stopped believing every cruel word the judge whispers? What if, instead of listening to the victim's fear, you chose a new agreement? One based on love instead of fear, one that expands you instead of shrinking you. This is the essence of Ruiz's path. We don't destroy the dream by force, we rewrite it. And the way we rewrite it is through 4 new agreements. Think of them like medicine for the soul. Each one challenges the old contracts and begins to dissolve their grip on you. Now, here's the warning. These agreements are deceptively simple. On the surface, you might hear them and think, "That's it, that's too easy." But once you try to live them, you realize how much discipline and awareness they demand. The dream of the planet is powerful, and it constantly tries to pull you back. That's why Ruiz says the practice is like training yourself anew. Every time you live one of the 4 agreements, you weaken the old ones. Every time you catch yourself slipping into judgment, assumption, or self-abuse, and choose differently, you take back a piece of your freedom. So, which agreement comes first? Where do we begin when trying to untangle years of conditioning? Ruiz starts with the foundation of everything, something we use every single day, whether we realize its power or not, our word. Words can heal, and words can poison. They can create heaven, or they can create hell. And until you see just how powerful they are, you'll never understand why the first agreement is the cornerstone of all the others. Because the words you choose don't just shape your relationships, they shape your entire reality. Words. We speak them every day, thousands of them. Most of the time, we don't even think about them. A quick hello, a careless complaint, a passing joke. But Don Miguel Ruiz says this: your word is your most powerful tool of creation. It can build worlds or destroy them. That's why the very first agreement is this: be impeccable with your word. Now, what does impeccable mean? It doesn't mean perfect. It comes from the Latin roots iam, meaning without, and peccatus, meaning sin. So to be impeccable with your word means to use your word without sin, to speak without going against yourself, to never use your words to harm neither others nor yourself. Think about it. With just a few words, you can plant seeds in someone's mind that last a lifetime. Imagine a parent telling a child, "You're stupid." Those 2 little words can become an agreement, shaping that child's reality for decades. That child grows up believing, "I'm not smart enough," and lives with limitations that weren't real, only spoken. But the opposite is also true. Words can lift. A sincere, "I believe in you," can light a fire in someone who was ready to give up. That's the power of your word. It's like magic. It can cast spells, it can curse or bless. And every day, we are either casting black magic or white magic. Most of us underestimate this. We gossip, we criticize, we talk negatively about ourselves. "I'm so stupid, I can't do this, I'm not good enough." But every time we say these things, even jokingly, we are programming our minds. We are reinforcing old agreements that keep us small. Ruiz warns that gossip, in particular, is one of the most dangerous misuses of the word. When you spread poison about someone else, you're not just harming them. You're feeding fear, envy, and negativity inside yourself. You're creating a reality based on lies, and in the end, those lies come back to you. So to be impeccable with your word means to speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Use words to create truth and love, not fear and hate. Speak against injustice, yes, but don't use words to tear others down just to feel powerful. That's not strength, that's poison. But here's the twist. Being impeccable with your word isn't just about how you speak to others. It's about how you speak to yourself. Most of the harm we do with words isn't to the world, it's inside our own heads. Think about the endless loop of self-criticism most of us carry. I can't. I'm not enough. I'll never make it. That's not truth. That's the judge using your own word against you. What would happen if you stopped? If instead of reinforcing those old lies, you spoke to yourself with respect? If instead of saying, I'm a failure, you said, I'm learning? If instead of, I'm unlovable, you said, I'm growing and I deserve love? Slowly, those words would begin to rewire your reality, because words aren't just sounds, they shape the way we see the world. And here's the challenge, it's not easy. The dream of the planet thrives on careless words, gossip, negativity, blame. To be impeccable with your word requires awareness. It means pausing before you speak. It means asking, will these words create love or will they create poison? But if you practice it, something miraculous happens. You begin to see the old agreements weaken. The judge inside has less ammunition. The victim begins to heal. And you start to reclaim the power that was always yours. The word is a double-edged sword. Use it carelessly, and it cuts you down. Use it wisely, and it sets you free. And this is only the beginning. Because once you start living impeccably with your word, the other agreements start to fall into place. But before we get there, let's go deeper into this first agreement. Because words are more than tools, they're seeds. And the kind of seeds you plant will determine the kind of life you harvest. Every word we speak is like planting a seed. Some seeds grow into flowers, confidence, love, truth. Others grow into weeds, fear, doubt, shame. The soil, that's the human mind. And here's the truth. Our minds are always fertile. Whatever we plant will grow. The only question is, what are we planting? Don Miguel Ruiz warns us that most people don't realize the weight of their words. Imagine a child who loves to sing. One day she sings loudly at home, and her mother, tired and stressed, says, "Stop that noise, you have a terrible voice." The child believes her. In that moment, a seed is planted. I can't sing. I'm not good enough. Years later, that child may never sing again, not because she lacked talent, but because of one careless seed that grew into a lifelong agreement. This is the power of words. They create reality. When spoken with love, they liberate. When spoken with fear, they imprison. Ruiz calls the harmful use of words black magic, and the healing use of words white magic. Every conversation, every thought, every whisper we repeat to ourselves is either black magic or white magic. One of the most common forms of black magic is gossip. We rarely see how destructive it is. Gossip is like planting weeds in someone else's mind. You may casually say, "She's not trustworthy," or "He's lazy." The person who hears it now carries a poisoned seed. They may believe it, repeat it, and spread it further. Suddenly, one careless word has created mistrust, division, even hatred. But gossip doesn't only hurt others, it poisons us too. The more we speak negatively, the more negativity we feed inside ourselves. Soon we see the world through a dirty lens, full of fear and suspicion. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine words of encouragement, truth, and respect. When you tell someone, "I believe in you," "You inspire me," or "You matter," those words also plant seeds. Seeds that grow into confidence, hope, and strength. Those words echo in the mind of the listener long after you've spoken them, sometimes shaping the course of their life. And it's not only about what we say to others, It's about what we whisper to ourselves. Think about the conversations you have inside your head. How many of them are filled with doubt? How many are rooted in shame? That inner voice, if left unchecked, can become the harshest prison guard of all. But here's the good news. We can choose differently. We can plant new seeds. Every time you catch yourself saying, "I'm not good enough," you can replace it with, "I'm still growing and that's okay." Every time you're tempted to gossip, you can choose silence. Or even better, you can plant a seed of kindness instead. Being impeccable with your word doesn't mean you'll never slip. It means that, as best as you can, you commit to words that heal instead of harm. It's a practice, and like any practice, it gets easier with time. When you live this way, people feel it. Your presence changes. Your words carry weight because they're rooted in truth. And slowly, the people around you begin to trust your voice because they know your word is clean. Most importantly, your relationship with yourself begins to heal. You no longer feed the judge with self-abuse. You no longer let the victim inside you drown in guilt. Instead, you plant seeds of freedom, seeds of self-respect, seeds of self-love. The first agreement may sound simple, but it is the foundation of all the others. Without it, the rest will crumble. With it, everything begins to shift. But life won't stop testing you. Even if you master your words, the world will still throw opinions, judgments, and negativity your way. And this is where the second agreement comes in. It's about learning to protect your peace no matter what others say or do. Because the next step to freedom is realizing this powerful truth. What others say about you is never really about you. How much of your suffering comes from what other people think about you? A comment, a look, a careless word. Sometimes it's enough to ruin your entire day. But Don Miguel Ruiz says it doesn't have to be this way. His second agreement is a shield, a powerful tool that can protect your peace in any situation. The agreement is simple. Don't take anything personally. At first, that sounds impossible. How could you not take it personally when someone insults you, when they betray you, when they ignore you? We've been trained to believe that everything people say about us is the truth. But Ruiz reveals a secret. What people say about you is never really about you. It's about them. Every human being lives in their own dream, their own version of reality. Their words, their actions, their judgments, they're all reflections of their own agreements, their own fears, their own experiences. When someone calls you ugly, stupid, or worthless, they're not describing who you are. They're projecting the world inside their own mind. Imagine someone points at the sky on a cloudy day and insists it's green. Would you get angry? Would you argue? Probably not. You'd know they were just seeing something through their own distorted lens. That's exactly how it is with people's opinions. They see you through their lens, their pain, their beliefs, their wounds. It has nothing to do with your true self. When you take things personally, you are agreeing with their poison. You swallow it as if it's yours, and suddenly their judgment becomes your reality. But when you refuse to take it personally, their poison has nowhere to land. It bounces off, you remain free. Ruiz explains it this way. If someone tells you, "You're amazing, you're the best," don't take that personally either. Because even praise is filtered through their dream. If you believe it blindly, you may start chasing approval instead of living authentically. The real freedom comes from this, knowing that you are responsible only for your own agreements, your own words, your own truth. What others think or say is their story, not yours. Of course, this doesn't mean you should become cold or indifferent. It doesn't mean ignoring feedback or shutting people out. It simply means you don't let their words control your emotions. You listen, you learn if there's truth, but you don't absorb it as poison. Think of this agreement as a shield. Every time someone tries to hit you with words, insults, gossip, even praise, the shield reminds you, this is not mine, this belongs to them. And the moment you remember that, you're free. But here's the challenge. This agreement takes practice. We are so conditioned to take everything personally that breaking the habit feels unnatural at first. Yet with time, it becomes one of the most liberating practices you can ever master. Because when you stop taking things personally, something incredible happens. You become untouchable. No one can manipulate you with fear. No one can control you with guilt. No one can pull you into their drama. You remain steady, clear, and strong, no matter what storm swirls around you. The second agreement is freedom from the opinions of others. But there's still another trap most of us fall into, a trap so subtle that we don't even realize how much it costs us. It's the habit of making assumptions. And unless you learn to break it, assumptions will quietly poison your relationships and your peace of mind. Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding that no matter what anyone says, you won't let it touch your heart. Someone criticizes you. You smile, knowing it's not about you. Someone ignores you. You keep walking, knowing it's not rejection, just their own world pulling them away. Imagine how peaceful, how unshakable your life would feel if you lived this way. That's the gift of the second agreement. But let's be honest, it's easier said than done. From childhood, we've been trained to take things personally. Remember school? A teacher scolds you and you think, I'm dumb. A group of kids laugh and you think, they hate me. Someone breaks up with you and you think, I'm not enough. Those stories get planted deep, and we carry them into adulthood. Now think about how many conflicts in your life started because you took something personally. A friend didn't text back, and you assumed they were upset. A co-worker spoke sharply, and you felt attacked. A stranger gave you a dirty look, and it ruined your mood. In reality, none of it was about you. Maybe your friend was busy. Maybe your co-worker was stressed. Maybe the stranger had their own problems. But by taking it personally, you carried their burden as if it belonged to you. Ruiz tells us this: when you stop taking things personally, you stop drinking other people's poison. Their anger, their sadness, their opinions, they stay with them. You don't swallow it, you don't let it infect your soul. Here's a simple way to practice it. The next time someone criticizes you, pause before reacting. Instead of thinking, why are they attacking me? Try asking, what's going on in their world right now? You'll often see that their reaction has nothing to do with you. It's just a reflection of their inner state. This agreement also transforms relationships. Without it, you're always on edge, waiting to be hurt, waiting to be judged. With it, you can love more freely. If your partner snaps at you, you don't spiral into, they don't love me. Instead, you see their frustration for what it is, a passing storm. If a friend cancels plans, you don't take it as rejection. You give them space, knowing it's about their needs, not your worth. The second agreement doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because once you stop taking things personally, manipulation loses its grip on you. Think about it. People can only control you if you react to their words. If they insult you and you get angry, they win. If they guilt you and you feel crushed, they win. But if you stand calmly, shielded by this agreement, no one controls your emotions but you. That is true freedom. Of course, this doesn't mean you'll never feel pain. Words can still sting. But the sting doesn't have to stay. You can acknowledge it, breathe, and let it go. You choose not to carry it. The second agreement creates a calm within you, a steadiness that others can feel. You stop being tossed around by every opinion, every comment, every mood. Instead, you stand like a mountain, grounded, centered, unshakable. But there's another trap that quietly steals our peace, even when no one is attacking us directly. It's the assumptions we make, the stories we invent in our heads about what others mean, what they want, what they think. And unless we learn to stop making assumptions, we will keep writing painful stories that were never true to begin with. Have you ever noticed how much of your stress comes not from reality, but from the stories you create in your head? A friend doesn't reply to your message. Hours pass. You start spinning. Are they angry? Did I do something wrong? Are they ignoring me on purpose? By the time they finally respond with a casual, sorry, I was busy, you've already written an entire drama in your mind. That is the power of assumptions. Don Miguel Ruiz calls assumptions one of the deadliest poisons in our relationships. Why? Because when we assume, We treat our imagination as truth. We don't ask. We don't clarify. Instead, we invent. And that invention almost always pulls us toward fear. Think about it. When someone doesn't wave back, do you ever assume, oh, they probably didn't see me? Rarely. More often you assume, they don't like me. When your partner seems quiet, do you assume they're just tired? Or do you assume they're upset with me? Our minds are quick to jump into negative stories, and once we believe them, we react as if they're real. Ruiz explains that assumptions become agreements we make with ourselves. Once we decide the story is true, we defend it, act on it, and even hurt others because of it. Couples argue for hours over things that weren't even real to begin with. Friendships end not because of betrayal, but because of assumptions left unspoken. So why do we do this? Why do we keep creating painful stories instead of simply asking? The answer is fear. We're afraid of the truth, so we fill the silence with our own version. Asking requires courage. It requires vulnerability. It's easier to assume and retreat into our imagination than to speak openly. But here's the problem. Every assumption builds walls between us. Imagine how many heartbreaks, fights, and disappointments in your life could have been avoided if you had just asked, "What did you mean?" or "Can you explain?" instead of inventing your own answer. Breaking this habit starts with awareness. The moment you feel yourself spinning a story, pause. Ask yourself, do I really know this is true, or am I assuming? That pause is powerful. It creates space for clarity. Ruiz gives us a simple antidote to assumptions: ask questions, speak clearly, communicate. It sounds simple, but it takes practice. Instead of guessing what your partner is thinking, ask them. Instead of assuming your coworker dislikes you, talk to them. Instead of believing you know someone's motives, give them the chance to tell you. This agreement might feel uncomfortable at first. Asking can make you feel exposed, vulnerable. But over time, it creates a freedom far greater than the prison of assumptions. Because when you stop inventing stories, you stop suffering over illusions. You live in truth. And here's the beauty. When you practice this agreement, not only do you find peace, you also build stronger connections. People trust those who communicate openly. Relationships deepen when you stop hiding behind stories and start speaking honestly. But the third agreement doesn't end with asking questions. There's another layer, another challenge. Learning to express yourself clearly so that others don't have to assume about you. Because assumptions aren't just something we make, they're also something we cause when we fail to communicate our truth. We've seen how assumptions poison our minds when we create stories about others. But here's something we often overlook. When we stay silent, when we hide our truth, when we fail to express ourselves clearly, we invite others to make assumptions about us. Think about it. How many times have you said, "I'm fine," when you weren't? How often have you smiled politely while secretly feeling hurt? In those moments, the people around you can only guess what's going on inside. And when people have to guess, they will almost always get it wrong. Silence doesn't protect you, it creates confusion. Don Miguel Ruiz teaches that the way out of this cycle is simple but powerful. Be brave enough to ask questions, and be clear enough to answer them with honesty. Instead of expecting others to read your mind, speak your truth. Instead of assuming you know their truth, give them the chance to share. This takes courage, because clarity demands vulnerability. It means admitting what you really feel. It means risking rejection. It means putting your heart on the table instead of hiding behind safe, polite words. But the reward is enormous. Real connection, trust, and freedom from endless misunderstandings. Imagine relationships where people didn't have to guess, where you could say, "I feel hurt when this happens," and instead of starting a fight, it opened a conversation. Where you could admit, "I don't understand, can you explain?" without shame. Where instead of assuming intentions, you sought truth. That kind of communication doesn't just prevent pain, it creates intimacy, love, and respect. The third agreement is not about controlling others, it's about taking responsibility for your side. You can't stop people from making assumptions, but you can make it harder for them by being transparent and clear. And you can free yourself from the suffering caused by your own assumptions by choosing truth over imagination. Here's a simple practice. Whenever you catch yourself assuming, turn it into a question. Instead of, they must be angry with me, ask why, are you upset? Instead of, she didn't call back, she doesn't care, ask, did something come up? And whenever you're tempted to stay quiet, remind yourself, silence breeds stories. Speak, even if your voice shakes. The third agreement transforms relationships in ways you can feel immediately. Conflicts shrink. Trust grows. People feel seen, heard, and understood because you're not living in guesses, but in reality. And here's the deeper truth. When you stop assuming and start communicating, you also strengthen your relationship with yourself. You begin to notice how often your own mind spins stories. You become more honest about your feelings, your needs, your desires, and that honesty is the foundation of freedom. But the journey isn't finished yet. There's one more agreement, perhaps the most practical, the most grounding of them all. Because even if you fail at the other three, if you practice this last one, you can still live a life of peace and joy. It's simple, but it changes everything. When you hear the phrase, always do your best, it probably sounds familiar. It's advice we've all heard from parents, teachers, or coaches. But Don Miguel Ruiz gives it a meaning far deeper than hard work or effort. He shows us that living this agreement is the key to breaking the endless cycle of guilt, regret, and self-criticism. Here's the truth. Your best is never the same from moment to moment. Some days your best is powerful. You feel energized, focused, and unstoppable. Other days your best is smaller. You're tired, stressed, or healing. And that's okay. Doing your best doesn't mean doing more than you can. It doesn't mean being perfect. It means showing up fully with what you have right now. Think about how much unnecessary suffering comes from expecting yourself to perform at the highest level all the time. You beat yourself up when you're not as productive as yesterday. You call yourself lazy when your body needs rest. You compare today's effort to last week's, forgetting that you're not the same person every day. Ruiz reminds us, your best will change with your circumstances. The only thing that matters is that you give your full effort in this moment, whatever that looks like. When you live this way, something powerful happens. You stop judging yourself. Imagine finishing a day, and instead of replaying everything you should have done, you can say, I did my best with what I had. There's no room for regret in that. There's no space for guilt, because guilt and regret only survive when you believe you could have done better. But if you truly gave your best, then you know the truth, you couldn't have. This agreement also frees you from the poison of procrastination and half-hearted effort. Too often, we drag ourselves through tasks, doing them carelessly, then blaming ourselves later. But when you commit to always doing your best, even the smallest tasks, washing dishes, answering emails, listening to a friend, become meaningful. You live with integrity. You live with pride. And here's something even more beautiful. When you do your best, you inspire others. Your energy, your dedication, your honesty, it radiates. People can feel when you're fully present, fully committed. It creates respect, trust, and admiration without you even trying. But this agreement isn't just about effort. It's also about balance. Ruiz warns us, doing your best doesn't mean working yourself to exhaustion. It doesn't mean sacrificing your health or peace just to prove yourself. In fact, pushing beyond your best only creates more suffering. Real wisdom is knowing when your best is to act and when your best is to rest. Picture this. A musician who plays not to impress the crowd, but simply to give their whole heart to the performance. A student who studies not out of fear of failure, but because they want to honor their growth. A parent who spends time with their child, not distracted, but fully present. That's the essence of this agreement. It's not about outcome, it's about presence. And yet there's one more piece of this puzzle. Doing your best isn't just about tasks. It's about how you live, how you love, how you treat yourself and others. When you bring your best self into every moment, life itself becomes art. But what about the times you stumble? What about the moments when you don't live up to the first three agreements? When you speak carelessly, take things personally, or fall into assumptions? That's where the fourth agreement becomes your safety net. Because as Ruiz reveals, if you always do your best, you can forgive yourself for everything else. we've reached the final agreement. Always do your best. In Part 9, we explored what it means to redefine your best, not as perfection, but as showing up fully with whatever you have in the present moment. Now let's dive into why this simple practice is the ultimate key to freedom. Here's the truth. You will not live the other 3 agreements perfectly. You'll speak without thinking sometimes. You'll take things personally when you know you shouldn't. You'll make assumptions even after promising yourself you wouldn't. That's human, that's life. But the 4th agreement is what saves you from drowning in guilt or self-punishment. If you always do your best, you can forgive yourself for the mistakes. You can say, yes, I stumbled, but I gave the best I could in that moment. I'll try again tomorrow. That's freedom. Freedom from regret. Freedom from shame. Freedom from the endless weight of perfectionism. Doing your best turns every failure into a lesson. It transforms every mistake into growth. Because when you know you've given all you had, the outcome doesn't define you anymore. Success or failure, praise or criticism, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you lived with integrity. You honored yourself. And here's something beautiful. When you practice this agreement long enough, life itself becomes lighter. Work doesn't feel like punishment because you're not forcing yourself, you're simply showing up with your best. Rest doesn't feel like laziness because you're honoring your body's needs. Relationships become smoother because you stop holding grudges over things you could not control. This agreement is a reminder that your value isn't measured by results. It's measured by presence, by the heart you put into what you do, by the honesty with which you live. That's why Don Miguel Ruiz calls it the path to personal freedom. Because when you do your best, you're no longer chained by fear of failure or regret of the past. Now, let's bring it all together. The first agreement taught us to be impeccable with our word, to use language as a tool for love and truth, not poison. The second agreement reminded us never to take things personally, because what others say and do is only a reflection of their own reality. The third agreement showed us how to avoid assumptions by choosing clarity and communication over stories and misunderstandings. And finally, the fourth agreement gave us the anchor, to always do our best, no matter what. Because even if we fail at the first three, this last one allows us to forgive, to heal, and to keep moving forward without regret. Together, these four agreements form a new way of living, a way of breaking free from the old beliefs, the domestication that filled us with fear, shame, and self-judgment. They open the door to personal freedom, to love, to joy. And maybe the most powerful truth of all is this: these agreements aren't about becoming someone else. They're about returning to who you really are, before the world told you who to be, a being of love, a being of freedom, a being capable of creating heaven on earth, starting from within. So, as you walk away from this journey, remember this: you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. Speak with love. Don't take the poison of others. Ask questions instead of assuming. And in everything you do, give your best. That is enough. That is freedom. And with that, the Four Agreements is not just a book you read, it's a way of life you can choose, starting now. And that brings us to the end of the Four Agreements. If this summary gave you clarity, inspiration, or even just a moment of peace, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need it today. Don't forget to hit the like button, drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how these agreements speak to you. And of course, subscribe if you'd like more deep, life-changing ideas explained in a simple way. If you want to go even deeper, you can check out the full book. I'll leave the link in the description below. It's one of those books worth reading again and again. Thanks for spending this time with me. Until next time, take care of your words, your heart, and your freedom.